Jim Kunkle here. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel and set the notification bell to all so that you won't miss any of my new content. What is a polyurea coating? A polyurea coating is a highly reactive, two-component coating used in atmospheric and immersion surface applications. Extremely high film build capability for one coating applications and fast return to service. Typically tack-free in seconds and put into service in a matter of minutes or hours. I'm Jim Kunkle and welcome to this week's Protective Coatings Industry interview. Joining me today is Meredith Carr, who's the Executive Director of the Polyurea Development Association, or PDA as it's known in the industry. Meredith, welcome.
Well, hi, Jim. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this interview and kind of talking a little bit more about the association.
Well, Meredith, for those watching the interview who might have a limited knowledge on the PDA, what is the PDA and the association's global mission and your role with the organization as well?
Sure. So I am the executive director for the association. And as the executive director, I work very closely with the board of directors to work on initiatives for the association that help the industry as a whole. And they always revert back to PDA's mission statement, which is essentially to focus on education and the correct application of polyurea products. I've been the executive director for, let's see here, about 7 years now, and I've been working with the association since 2012.
Oh, very good, very good. Which demographics make up PDA's membership?
Absolutely. So the membership within PDA is primarily contractors and applicators. Are the workers who are boots on the ground type of people. That makes up about 65% of PDA's membership. The other portions are essentially 25% of the membership being formulators and system suppliers, and then the remaining 10% would fall into that other category, if you will. And those people can be defined as, our raw materials suppliers, universities, honorary members, equipment distributors, etc.
So as a global association, how does PDA provide education and information on the proper application of polyurea?
That's a really good question. And we have several objectives that we essentially go back to. Again, always going back to our mission statement of why we're trying to make sure that the correct applications are being used in the industry. And so some of these are, we clearly define polyurea as a type of elastomer that's derived from the reaction product of an isocyanate component and a synthetic resin blend component throughout a step growth polymerization. We also have developed industry marketing and communication programs. We try to serve as the clearinghouse for the dissemination of information regarding polyurea and other thick film elastomeric products by our website or by email. We also like to establish the protocol, and we work on industry standards for polyurea applications. We've been working with SSPC for a couple of years now on two different standards specific to the polyurea industry. But as we know, when you get ANSI involved in things, sometimes it gets to be a little bit cumbersome. It's not like you can just write a standard and then put it out to be published. There is a really strict guidelines and rules that are involved in that procedure. Additionally, we like to act as the premier industry training avenue through the development and delivery of industry-approved educational programs. And then, always, like any other organization, we host industry trade meetings as a form of technical reviews, new product introductions, getting information that's related to current industry trends, pertinent to, even legislation out to our database of people. And we always encourage our members to network within the PDA community and also reach out to our alliance partners just so that everyone's aware of what's going on in the industry and we're all sharing information and no one's kind of bottling it up, because that's the only way that the industry is truly going to succeed, is by sharing all of our resources and information.
Yes, I'd also like to point out too that several members of PDA have been very helpful related to SSPC training when it comes to plural component. As you mentioned, also working together related to standards, education, everything that's really needed out in the industry. So, PDA is very active in conferences and events. During 2020 with the global pandemic, how has PDA adapted during these times of travel restrictions and, group meetings and events that really can't happen at this time?
Right. So that's where it gets a little bit interesting, because, as the industry as a whole has kind of had to pivot. So we're doing obviously fewer in-person trainings, but our education and technical committee has had to essentially vamp up and say, okay, here are some in-person trainings that we've done either as part of a conference or a freestanding session. How can we translate this virtually, and what does that look like? Because the one thing that we want to make sure is when we're giving a training session, like for example, next week on Wednesday, we're doing a virtual training session on the introduction to polyurea. And this just kind of covers the basics of the technology and appropriate ways for surface prep, things of that nature. It's going to be an hour-long program, but we've typically done this in person. And so one of the things we had to really strive for is making sure that the same message is clearly conveyed to our attendees in a virtual setting as opposed to a classroom setting. And so we worked really hard on that. And I think that, this is the culmination of experiencing this session in person and then also being able to translate it online. And our instructors are, very knowledgeable about the industry and what it looks like to be on a job site and using this type of education. So that way they can kind of help field the questions that are going to come from the attendees, and also make sure that it's an interactive training session. So if you have a question, they're not going to discourage you from asking. They're going to want people to be engaged, and that's kind of one of the things that we're really proud of.
Interesting, very interesting. Meredith, what a great conversation we've been having. In closing out this interview, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd want to leave with the viewers?
Sure. There are two things. First thing being membership within PDA. The membership runs 1 calendar year, so it's valid from January 1st through December 31st. One thing that I think is really important about that industry professionals should know is, the amount of benefits that come within the industry, or come within the membership benefits for PDA. And those memberships are also reciprocal to other industry alliance partnerships like that we have with SSPC or SPFA or even ICRI. And so we try to do programs that all members can benefit from. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of is our fall conference, which is our 20th anniversary conference, has had to move online. And, obviously we're still pivoting. But the one thing that I really think is important is we've got some really great case studies that we're going to present virtually. We also have some really important information coming from a legal advisor when working with contracts. So if you're a contractor and you receive a bid, here are some things that you need to make sure are in your contract to protect you and your company during this global pandemic as well as after. And then we also have an insurance company representative who's going to talk about the proper types of insurance to have as a contractor while you're on the job site during the global pandemic and after. Because that's one thing that we've heard a lot about is, some of our contractor members in various parts of the country are having to pay these huge premiums because they have to carry different types of liability insurance now. So we want to make sure that everyone has all of the information possible. And I really think that, the sessions are going to be great. It's a minimal fee, whether you're a member or a non-member, but you're going to walk away with a lot of great information.
It sounds like the conference is going to be very comprehensive, not just only tackling technical topics, but also to your point, contractual, working with regulations and also the protocols related to the COVID-19 pandemic. What I'll make sure that I do for the viewers is not only have a link to the PDA online website, but other additional information that is relevant to your conference and everything like that. I also have contact information for Meredith if you'd want to get in contact with Meredith. Meredith, thank you so much for this opportunity to have a conversation with you today.
Oh, Jim, thank you so much. It was my pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for listening and joining in.
Hey, have a great day.
You do the same. Bye-bye.
So, Joe, for the lay person who's watching this episode who might only think that corrosion engineering is related to, metal corrosion, as an overview, what else does corrosion engineering relate to?